I would say if Activision maybe had called me a month or two later, I might have already inked a deal. They offered me a buyout of future royalties right before the game launched. But I didn't, and that was definitely the best financial decision of my life.
$1 billion they generated in sales.
To have that kind of success, especially in video games, is reserved for someone like Madden.
And at this time, you've got this deal with Activision bubbling away.
At that time, we had been working on a video game for about a year and a half. So there was definitely a crazy synergy, perfect storm in that moment, because I did that trick that drew a lot of attention to obviously me, but not just me, but skateboarding in general and the X Games. And then that was in June. And then we released what became Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in September.
Wow. And I was watching the video of you saying that you called the guy at Activision to ask him to include the 900 trick.
Neversoft, yeah. I emailed him. Yeah, that's a good story. I emailed Neversoft the next day and I said, hey, I did this thing and I think that people are going to expect to see it in the game now. And I know we didn't animate a 900, but I feel like if you guys have time to squeeze it in. And we were already in beta with the game, which meant that we were going to submit it to the console manufacturers. And once you do that, you cannot edit it. You can't alter it. And I remember Joel, who was the head of Neversoft, he emailed me back right away and he said, way ahead of you, you rule. And then they got it in.
I mean, and the rest is history, right?
I guess. I like to think I'm still creating it.
You know, your father, Frank, he'd been such an avid, huge supporter of you up until that point, but he didn't get to live to see all of this stuff after you were sort of 27, 28 years old, right?
No, he saw the first X Games.
Right.
And to him, that was as big as things could ever get because he was a big sports fan. Not just, obviously he loved skateboarding, but he also loved team sports. And for him to see skateboarding on the sports network, that was for him the coming of age.
Gosh, I bet he couldn't have imagined what would happen.
No, I mean, to think that it's gone on to be such a beloved sport internationally and in the Olympics. I mean, all that is just beyond what he would have imagined.
Have you ever wished that he could have seen what would happen with your career professionally, but also in business?
I think I'd rather wish for him to see the rise of skateboarding in general, because he was so integral in keeping it alive at a time when it was struggling through sanctioning events. So, I mean, sure, my own success, yeah, but I do feel like on a bigger scale, in more lofty terms, just the success of skateboarding is something that he would have been very proud of.
That video game deal, we all get emails, and these emails often contain opportunities. And sometimes we look at these emails, we're trying to figure out if it's an opportunity or not. Sometimes it looks like an opportunity. Sometimes it's a waste of time. Sometimes it's just someone, wanting a meeting to pick your brain about something. As you reflect on your decision now in hindsight to proceed with that video game, was there any close calls?
There was another group doing a game that had contacted me, and I went down the road with them a little bit and realized that what they were trying to do was so much more, I don't know how to explain it. It was more technically difficult to play because they were trying to truly emulate skating. And I felt like I understood that approach, but at the same time, skating wasn't that big when we released this game, or when we were going to release this game. And I wanted something that would be more friendly to the non-skater to play, to understand, to be able to just pick up and start doing tricks. And when I saw what Activision had, they had a very early version of a skater doing tricks, the way it moved. And to me, it was intuitive. It was perfect. It was like right away I started playing it. I started doing tricks. It was almost like it was an extension of my body to start doing this on that screen with that skater. And it something innately felt right about it to me. And so was there a close call? I would say if Activision maybe had called me a month or two later, I might have already inked a deal. So, but I felt very lucky.
On the commercial front, I read that you'd been offered a kind of a flat check.
When they were close to launch of the game, they started to sense that there was buzz about it. It was already getting good reviews from previews of the game publishers. I mean, not the magazine publishers. So they knew they had a good game overall, and they felt this surge of interest. And so they offered me a buyout of future royalties right before the game launched. Which at the time they offered me $500,000. And they said, I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, that's, you get that right now and then no money going forward. And for me, having lived through some really lean times, when they say $500,000, to me, it sounds like $1 billion gazillion dollars. I mean, no one had ever spoken those types of numbers to me before. But I felt like I was in a pretty good place. I was doing well in other ways. I was still skating a lot. I was doing events. I had good endorsements. We had Birdhouse was starting to actually be profitable, my skate company. And I had just bought a new house I had a loan, but my loan was manageable. And I thought, I'm going to take a risk because I'm doing okay. And I don't need that money right now. And even the timing of that, like if it had been just a few months before that, when I was looking at houses, maybe I would have taken that. But I didn't. And that was definitely the best financial decision of my life.
Because that game was a success, to say the
least. That
least.
one, and then the ones after it, and the ones after it, yeah.
How does one that might not understand the scale of that success quantify in a dollar amount how much revenue Tony Hawk Pro Skater generated in its legacy?
I mean, I know that they talk about $1 billion for Activision. My take is not that grandiose, but I am never going to complain. It changed my life completely.
$1 billion they generated in sales.
That was always their big buzz. Yes.
So much happens. Obviously that makes you financially free, but also you become like the Michael Jordan of skating. You are, I was playing you on my video game on the other side of the world when I was, how old was I? I'm going to say 8, roughly 8. Okay. You become this global icon of a sport. And it's funny because I didn't know skating before I knew the video game. The video game was my way into even understanding that the sport existed, and I would play it with my brothers. That's going from 0 to 1,000 in terms of notoriety.
Oh, for sure. And that was never lost on me. I mean, I felt very lucky to have my name synonymous with a video game and with skateboarding, because I had devoted my life to it.
Were you prepared for that?
No. How could you prepare for anything like that? There's no way. I mean, it's to have that kind of success, especially in video games, is reserved for someone like Madden or Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. I mean, it's to have it be your name was wild. And nowadays, I mean, we've come a long way. We did a remaster a couple years ago. There is a whole generation of kids, I'm not kidding, that have asked me if I was named after a video game.
What'd you tell them?
Sure, that's what it takes. Yeah.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.